Welcome to the Next Level Podcast, powered by San Manuel, a series connecting you with the best minds in casino, hospitality, tribal government, and beyond. Enjoy the show.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today on the Next Level Podcast. Joining me today is Kevin Glass. He is the general manager of the Palms Resort and Casino in Las Vegas. Hi, Kevin. How are you doing?
Good, Peter. How are you?
Great. Fantastic. Today, we're doing our show in a couple of specialty suites here at the Palms. And after the show, we'll kind of give you a sneak preview of what we got going on behind us. It's a little fun kind of to talk about the property in Las Vegas. But before we get to that, let's get to know our guest here, Kevin. Kevin, if you could, for the audience, talk about your origin story and sort of your background. How'd you get into gaming?
So in the late 90s, I won't say when, don't want to date myself. I was attending Community College of Southern Nevada. And at the time, I was a credit card collector. And one of the girls that I was seeing at the time, she was going in to do her processing at the Monte Carlo for a cocktail server job. And I was there with her. And they had job boards back then. And so on the job board, I saw front desk agent, a posting on there. And I was just sitting there and I read the job description and I thought to myself, wow, that sounds like a great job. I'm going to apply for that job. And so I filled out an application while I was sitting there, and I ended up getting a call back shortly thereafter, and the rest is history.
So your origin story was through the front office then, is that right?
Yeah, I started as a front desk agent on call. So I would work day shift one day, and then 2 days later, swing shift, and then I would pick up a morning shift. And so, front desk was really, and front office operation really was what I started for probably the beginning part of my career for the first probably 10, 15 years.
Okay. And then work your way through that then to today. What other stops did you make along the way? Did you do something beyond front office? I mean, what could you share with the viewers? Like where'd your journey go from there?
Sure. So after the front office operations, I actually landed here at the Palms back in 2001, where I was hired as the revenue, reservations, and leisure sales manager. So that was my first stop at sort of that back of house experience, learning revenue management, which, as I look back, was probably one of the most impactful opportunities that I ever had. Having been on the front office side, you deal with check-ins and check-outs, and then to actually go behind the scenes and understand how ADR and the different market segments work and how to fill the hotel was extraordinary. And then I had an opportunity to go open up a property up in a gaming property up in Summerlin, Red Rock. And I was hired as the hotel manager. And in that role, pre-opening, that was the first time that I actually opened the entire property from ground up. I oversaw all the front office operations, including the call center, PBX, front desk, VIP, bell and valet. And from there, I got promoted, and I was shipped out to Green Valley Ranch back in about 2006. And I was hired there as the director of hotel operations. So that was the first time that I had taken on areas such as housekeeping and public area and a bunch of different areas that I hadn't done before. So that was all my traditional hotel experience. And then I ended up opening up Cosmopolitan of Las Vegas. I opened up SLS of Las Vegas, in both instances as director of hotel operations. And the first time that I ever really had an opportunity to learn, more food and beverage and the gaming experience was at the Downtown Grand. I was hired there as a hotel general manager. And then I was given the entire property about 3 months after I started. And so that was the first time that I had to learn gaming. And that was by far the best experience that I've ever had. And I was at the Downtown Grand for about 6 years, oversaw the entire property. And then I was fortunate enough to get an opportunity to come back to the Palms.
Oh, that's great. And I know you were talking about your Green Valley Ranch years. I don't know if our viewers remember, but there was a reality TV show that was centered around and featuring Green Valley Ranch and the property and some of the team members back then. You were there during that time period. Was that right?
I actually got there right as it was finished. But
Oh,
I
okay.
did have a bit of experience with reality TV because when I was here at the Palms, that's when Real World Las Vegas was being filmed, and so I saw those guys running around and had to help be helpful for them during that process. So I definitely have some reality TV experience.
Well, that's fun. Yeah, those were the good days when I remember both of those shows out there. Okay, so getting back to your career for a moment, I think a lot of those folks that are tuning in and listening right now, many of them have a desire. They're in the gaming industry as well, and they're probably in this hospitality role, like you've been. You mentioned the Downtown Grand was your first major transition to be over not just the hospitality side of the world, but also the gaming. For those that are out there thinking about how could they plan their career, what do they need to do to prepare themselves to be considered for that type of opportunity? How do they cross that threshold? In our industry, sometimes you get pegged as a casino person or a hotel person or a food and beverage person or a marketing person. How are you able to kind of punch through that sort of barrier?
I think for me early on, when I knew that it's what I wanted to do long term and become a GM, I just made it very well known to the folks that I was around, whether that be the person that I reported to or even my colleagues. Just asking questions, trying to get exposure and sitting in meetings and truly just be a fly on the wall to listen and learn new things. What I found out quickly after being promoted to the general manager for the entire property was it's really all about people. At the end of the day, there's a lot of statistics in hotel, be it ADR and occupancy, like we talked about before. There's statistics in food and beverage and covers and average checks. Well, there's statistics in slots and tables with win per unit and so there's a bunch of different metrics. And what I did there was I just surrounded myself with smart people and I asked a lot of questions to where I could get to the point where I understood how the metrics worked. But at the end of the day, it all comes down to people skills and surrounding yourself with people, creating relationships with your employees, with the vendors, and with your customers. And I think that's one of the reasons why I love this job is that I just I get to be around people all day in all of those different categories. So I would say, don't be afraid to let people know that you are interested in it. And if you get an opportunity to sit in something that may be foreign to you, don't pass it up.
Okay, that's the sage advice there. It's a very good advice. Now, did you have mentors along the way? And if so, what sort of role did they play with your career progression and trajectory? A lot of people talk about mentors and it means different things to different people. Was that a big factor for you?
Yeah, there's a few that come to mind. The first one was a gentleman named Greg Sheets. He actually hired me here at the Palms back in 2001. He took a chance on me. I was a young kid and didn't have any revenue or reservations or leisure sales experience, and he put me into that role. Fast forward, if you take a look at my career, he's the one that hired me at Red Rock and also hired me at Cosmopolitan. So I think I definitely did a good job for him. Otherwise, he wouldn't have taken me to those other properties. But I certainly learned a lot from him watching the way that he treated the customers and the employees. And then a couple other names that come to mind. Bob Finch was somebody who took a chance on me out at Green Valley Ranch, and he was the one that promoted me the first time to my first director position. And I really enjoyed my time with Bob, and he really taught me. I remember doing Bob's book club. He would get me into reading and learning about leadership and things that as a young leader I didn't really understand the value up until that point. And so I'll always remember that experience. There's a lot of great people that I worked with out there. John Coletsu was the gentleman that Greg reported to here at the Palms, and I had an opportunity to work with him at the Downtown Grand. And he was a great mentor also. May he rest in peace. He's passed away recently. And I'd be remiss to not say yourself. I mean, Peter, I've learned an amazing amount of things from you, and I know that I hope I get to spend more time with you and continue to learn and grow.
Well, thanks, Kevin. I appreciate that, and that's wonderful to hear that these relationships over the years have helped you to grow personally and professionally. A lot of those out there are a little bit unsure, maybe not as confident in approaching someone to be a mentor, or at least, talk and maybe over time get to get that sort of relationship. Do you have any tips for folks out there that would like to get a mentor, but maybe are a little bit apprehensive about, approaching someone? How did you approach those back then? And has that changed today? And if someone wanted you to be their mentor, sort of what are you looking for in that communication?
Yeah, that's a great question. I joined the Nevada Hotel Lodging Association a long time ago, and they have a great mentorship program. That would definitely be an avenue that I would recommend looking into. We do mentorship programs yearly with them. I'm the co-chair, the vice president on that association, and I very much enjoy the mentorship program there. Of course, I'm also a student at UNLV, which may shock some folks. And even before I went back to college to finish my degree, I also participated in the UNLV program as well for mentorship. So I think I just sort of stumbled upon those mentors. I watched them care about people, and I cared about people. And so I don't know that at the time I truly understood what I had until much later on in life when I look back. And now I just, I realize how grateful I am that I had an opportunity to work with those folks.
So, talking about looking back and reflecting, is there something you would tell this is such a cliche question, but I think it's relevant, and I get asked this question often, which is, what would you say to your 25-year-old self? Is there anything any sort of advice in particular that you would give yourself at that age?
Gosh, I think when I was younger, I was definitely not really sure of myself as much as I probably should have been. I second guessed some decisions, and I would be a little bit timid. And so I think, now looking back at it, I think that I would have told myself, don't be afraid. It's okay for you to speak up and ask questions. Oftentimes I was the silent kind of guy in the room, and I'm still a relatively passive leader now. I'm not the one that's going to be screaming from the top. That's just not my style. But I do think in the younger years, I second guessed whether or not I was doing a good job.
I see. And so, are there skills along the way that you were able to develop to help you gain a little bit more confidence, or maybe change that perspective a little bit to break out of that, sort of shell? Is there, you mentioned books earlier that mentors would, or, probably articles, leadership stuff. Did that help you, or did you find that it was a good starting point and that you had to really depend on real world experience, or a combination of the two? So how was your approach to that?
I definitely think it's a combination of the two. I definitely read a lot of books over my time. A little bit less now, just because of the fact that I'm going to school, obviously. So my free time is spent on studying. But I do think that it's also, I asked questions. So I would sit down with leaders and I ask them to give me feedback. I think oftentimes people are afraid to ask for feedback. They think that somebody's going to say something to hurt their feelings. But all feedback is good feedback, in my opinion. So I would go straight to somebody and say, hey, I have a question. I'm thinking about something. Could you help me out? What are your thoughts on this? Or, hey, I just completed this task or this project. I'd love to get your feedback. Is there anything that I could have done better? And so you have to be open to that kind of feedback. Otherwise, you're never going to grow.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. So Kevin, I would like to get your take on something. I think it's super interesting in that would love to get your outlook on the state of hospitality and the future of hospitality, especially in Las Vegas and as it pertains to the casino industry here. It's a very exciting topic, and Vegas has historically been known to be a place where a lot of innovation and creativity and things of that nature would begin. What's your take on that, and what do you see in the future?
Yeah, I mean, the articles in the paper today really talk about how the perception is that Las Vegas doesn't have value. And I think that's one of the things that we do well here is we provide value and a great experience for our customers. I do think that technology is going to play a great part of the future, and particularly AI. And I'm not an AI professional. I don't claim to know everything about it, but I do feel like that's going to change the game in the future. I'm somewhat of the opinion that we kind of need to go back old school and really just start with grassroots when it comes to hospitality. And, you think about old school Vegas, where I'm not saying we're going to do 99-cent shrimp cocktails or 5-cent buffets, but I definitely feel like, just talking to your customers, being on the floor, listening to what they have to say, really paying attention to the customer experience. And you do that through by yourself, and then also through your staff and employees, of course. But I feel like old school Vegas is the way that we should be going. Maybe we should take a step back, because I just, as a customer, when I go into some of these other places, it just seems like the experience isn't all that great, and everything costs more than it should. So that's my opinion.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think what we're seeing with inflation just in general around the country in all industries is kind of causing industries to pause and say, how do we provide more value for the product or the service that we're trying to sell? Those are some very, very good points. Okay, let's talk a little bit about the city, and sports seems to be, every year there's more and more sports that are being added to the repertoire of the city. The A's are coming soon. I see the construction on the Strip, and it's well underway. So, you've been here through before pro sports arrived, and now we're right in the thick of things. So how has sports changed the city, and what do you see as the outlook for sports for Las Vegas?
You're right. When I got here back in 1990s, when I moved here, I think they had the Las Vegas Thunder back then, and that was it. They played at the Thomas and Mack, and then to think about it now with the Golden Knights and the Raiders, and there's a lot of talk about basketball, and as you mentioned, the A's coming. It's very exciting. I mean, you think about all the major cities in our country, the biggest ones all have multiple sports teams. In Vegas, unfortunately, and largely I think because of sports betting, at least in the beginning, was one of the roadblocks. We really never had that, but it changes the landscape here. I mean, the visitorship is up. If you look at some of the LVCVA stats, we see Raiders jerseys and other jerseys and Golden Knights jerseys. You can see people here. It's a game changer for the city.
And you recently had a trip to Europe, right? So you were able to compare and contrast, that experience in Europe with, sort of the experience here domestically. Did you see anything, any noticeable hospitality kind of focused experiences that you saw in Europe that's unique to Europe versus the US?
Yeah, I think that their attention to detail and their attention to customer service was something that I very much enjoyed. And I'll say the same. I know you and I are both fans of going to Mexico. Anytime I go to Mexico, they just really, really do a good job of recognizing you, making you feel valued, and enjoy the experience. And every time I come back, I feel, I'm reinvigorated, and I can't wait to hit the ground and continue to do that here. We do a great job, but there's always room for improvement.
And so where do you get your creative inspiration from? You get it from other destinations and operations, or somewhere else? How does, people out there listening maybe thinking, well, where do folks like you get your creative inspiration?
I mean, yeah, I definitely am a student, so I do a lot of research, whether it be online, listening to podcasts, and then I try to travel. Of course, I spend a lot of time going to different places here in Las Vegas because I want to see what people are doing or not doing in order to, make our business model even better. So I think it's a bunch of different ways, and I also just talk to people, right? Like I said, I like to just be on the floor, whether it's talking to employees or guests, and you'd be amazed how much great information and ideas you can get from just simply spending 5 or 10 minutes chatting with somebody.
And so do you have any thoughts on what the next big thing would be? Like, maybe not just in Vegas, but maybe in hospitality in general, or?
Well, I don't know. I'm not sure about that one. I'll have to get back to you. You stumped me.
I think your AI comment might be tied to some of it. Although I think everyone's kind of still struggling to wrap their heads around what is the true benefit that could be had with AI. and doing it safely, right? I mean, cybersecurity is a big concern, and so being able to maintain that secure platform but explore AI, I think that's possible. That's a possible big thing in the future.
Yeah, I mean, I go back to the same thing, which is right. Like when you have an experience, you want to experience a human, right? Like as much as I know that I can, and if I want to check in at the front desk with a kiosk or on my mobile phone, that's not AI exactly, but it's talking about technology. I'm the kind of person, sometimes I like to do that if I'm in a hurry or if I'm there for a convention, but there's other times where I want to have a conversation and ask questions and have, that human touch. So as much as I think AI is coming and technology is going to be a game changer, I hope it doesn't sway too far to one side or the other.
Now, you mentioned you were a student and you're actively taking classes. Now, I know how that goes. Recently went back to college, believe it or not, myself. What has that experience been like for you? You're not alone. A lot of people have gone back to school. Would you suggest to people that if they were thinking about doing it, they should? And how has that experience been for you so far?
I got to be honest. At first, I was really apprehensive about doing it. Obviously, this role consumes a lot of my time, and I have a family, so my spare time I like to try to hang out with my family. But I remember making a promise to my mom 25, 30 years ago that at some point I would go back, and obviously I just progressed through my career, and that was my primary focus. But I just decided with some pushing from some folks that were around me and my mom and even my wife, just decided that I was going to do it, and that I can make excuses at the end of the day, and I wasn't going to make excuses anymore. It hasn't been easy, but I definitely recommend that you do it. It's interesting because a lot of times when people interview me or they talk to me and they find out that I don't have a degree, they're surprised. And I remember when I was interviewing for a role way back early in my day, the gentleman that was interviewing me, when I was going to school at the time, he said, just take some advice from me, get practical skills and learn the business, and you'll advance. And I always remembered that. And clearly that was something that I was able to do. But now that I'm in school again and I'm taking these classes, it's very interesting. I have a much different mindset. As I'm reading the material and I'm learning things, I can actually put it up against practical knowledge for the most part that I've experienced over my career. So it is fun. It is hard, and I'm glad that I'm doing it. And I look forward to finally having a degree.
Oh, that's fantastic, and that's good to hear, and encouraging for folks that maybe thought, well, it might be too late for me to go back. So that's fantastic. Thank you for sharing that. Switching gears for a moment. So this is your first time in your career working for a tribe. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Yeah. All right. So talk to the audience a little bit for those who may be wondering, what's the difference between working for a commercial organization versus a tribal organization? Have you given that much thought? And what are the similarities and what are the differences?
Well, I mean, I had not worked for a tribal up until this point, and I have to tell you, it's been the best experience in my entire career. I would say the difference is that feel like you work for people and a family as opposed to a corporation. And I can't say enough about how much of a great experience it's been for me. I remember when I started the interview process and I was considering coming over, as we mentioned, from the downtown Grand as the general manager to the role here. And after having gone through the interview process and meeting several of the executives through the first interview, through the second interview, and then having an opportunity to meet the board in person, I just simply fell in love with the culture, the mission, the vision, and the values, and what they stood for, what they stand for. And I remember them aligning with my personal, and they still do align with my personal values. And so for me, I can't say enough about how different it is and how great of an experience it's been.
That's great. I get that question a lot, and having split my career has been equally split between commercial and tribal. That's a very common question that I would receive, but wanted the opportunity to talk to someone who's recently made that transition. So thank you for sharing that. As we're coming to a close on this show, what are 3 things that you would share with the audience as it relates to their career journey and career path?
I think, for me, the most important thing is to take risks. It's okay to put yourself out on some skinny branches. Being safe all the time isn't necessarily the right thing to do. I think also, it's okay to fail a little bit, right? Don't be afraid to fail. You have to, that's how you're going to learn. But at the end of the day, as I mentioned before, in my opinion, the most important thing in the hospitality sector, if you will, is the people portion, right? I mentioned some of the leaders that I had worked for in the past, and I spend a lot of my time thinking about how I can do the same and pay it forward, right? So I spend a lot of time with leaders here on property, trying to understand where they want to go and make sure that I can help them on a path to get where they want to go, because people took a chance on me, and that's the only way that I was able to be successful myself. So that's what I would suggest pay attention to is find a mentor. If you have an opportunity to find a mentor, ask questions, take risks, and don't be afraid to fail.
Those are great tips. I think very sage advice for those out there looking to progress. Well, before we end the show, as promised, we are going to talk a little bit about, this is fun, right? This is part of the fun for working for an organization that has a great property like the Palms. We're doing today's show out of 2 of the signature suites here at the Palms. I think I'll go first. I'm going to take my laptop so everyone can say, hey, well, what's it like at the Palms? Well, take a look. One of the great things about the property is the view. You could see the view of Las Vegas in the background. This is a great suite. I'm on the 26th floor of the Fantasy Tower. This particular suite is the cinema suite, and it has a beautiful pool table here. Now I'm walking backwards, so hopefully I don't trip, but we'll go on this journey. And what makes this interesting, why it's called the cinema suite, has this awesome cinema room. Check those out. Those beautiful, comfortable chairs, and you could watch your favorite sporting event, a movie, or the NFL draft, and March Madness. This is very popular during that time period. And then here's a nice little sitting area for dining, as well as a bar. So there's 2 bars in this suite, one out in the main area and one in the cinema. And then, of course, we have an amazing, bedroom. You have to go down this hallway. Awesome master suite with fun art in the background. Great bathroom that has a great view of the city, by the way. It's just it's truly unique and fun. But I think, Kev, your suite is a little bit more fun and bigger than mine, right? Where are you at?
I'm in one of the 1-story villas. So we actually have 4 of these villas. They're 5,000 square feet. They have 2 master bedrooms. The thing that I think stands out the most in this room, and I'm going to open up the drapes here, is it has a pool that is jetting outside and overlooking Las Vegas Boulevard. So if you've not seen one of these villas, it's absolutely unbelievable. Let me see.
So this is the suites, right? When you're looking at the Palms and you can actually see like 5 or 6 pools sticking out over the edge, right? This is one of those.
That's it. I'm going to show you right now.
This is kind of a one-of-one Vegas experience, folks. You're getting an inside, peek here. Oh man, look at that. Kev, go around the other side. Let's see what it looks like from that angle. Right? Yeah. So these are the things you see sticking out the side of the Palms, and these pools hang out right over the edge like that. And that's what you're seeing hang out over the edge. And what floor are you on? You're on the 30th?
I'm on the 30th floor. Yeah, we have 28, 29, 30, and 31. Look at that view.
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. So you could swim over the city, right?
Yep, you can.
So this is the creativity, the innovation, the hospitality, the casino world that Kevin lives in, and has been the general manager now for several months. And really, you're at the pinnacle of your career doing some really cool stuff. Is there any final thing you want to say? Are you going to show? Oh, you're going to show the bedrooms too.
I'll show you one.
Everyone's in for a treat here. So
check this out first, just in case you want to get a massage. There's a massage table right here.
Perfect.
And then we also have in every one of these villas, there's an actual sauna in each one of the rooms. So there's a sauna right there. If you want to work out and do the Peloton, there's a treadmill and bike. And then this is just one of the bedrooms. So of course there's two.
Oh, that's fantastic. So if you need to sweat it out in Vegas a little bit, you can work out, go in the sauna, relax, swim over the strip. I mean, this is fantastic. And Kevin, you're the GM of this wonderful, beautiful property. So congratulations, and thank you again for joining us today and for giving our listeners and viewers some key tips to success. We really appreciate you.
Thanks, Peter. I appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity.
Yep.
Check out more episodes at thenextlevelcareers.com.